As trend traders, we do not like choppy waters. We don't like choppy markets. We know that it's best to simply avoid those markets altogether. The problem is, by the time you realize you're in a choppy market, it's often too late. So what do? You do what we're going to do today. You find an indicator that can let you know early on when the market is about to get choppy, and also let you know early on when the market is about to stop being choppy and trend again. That's right, traders. We have ourselves a volume indicator. And make no mistake, we're not doing this because some of you have subtly begged for it in the comments. That's hella weak, by the way. No, there's just not a lot of these out there, as you guys probably know. And this one is a huge pain in the ass. Volume indicators generally, on the indicator profile series, are very difficult to test. And this one in particular is very high maintenance. Well, I'll show you in a bit. This is different than the choppiness indicator I tested a long time ago, by the way. So a lot of you may be familiar with this one already, but this version may be different. So stick around. You're going to want to see this because the question you have to ask yourself, it's almost like having a high maintenance girlfriend. Is it worth it? And the results are going to be pretty crazy. You're going to want to stick around for this. I know I've said this in past episodes, and I was right. But it's about to get really crazy here. So this is going to be a long episode, so let's go ahead and move forward now. Now, if you're new, understand that this is the premier indicator channel on all of YouTube, but it's not going to make a lot of sense because we talk a certain way, we do things a certain way. So what you need to do is go to nononsenseforex.com, read the homepage, watch the first video on the homepage, and get yourself started. You're going to love what you're going to see, and pretty soon you'll be caught up with us. Then you get to hang out every Wednesday. What could be better? But for those of you who already know what's going on, let's go ahead and get into the specs. The year is 1992. This is about 4 years before the 1996 and on threshold we like to see here on the channel. But it's not too old, so we'll give it a chance. And the type is going to be a volume indicator, like I said. I would probably actually call this a volatility indicator. But again, like I said 5 years ago, stop arguing minutia. Just put it in the same basket. It doesn't matter. It has no effect on your bottom line. And the same goes for people who complain about some of these indicators. It's so silly. If you think an indicator looks too much like another indicator, or if you have issues with the results that we show, just push it aside and wait till next week. Don't overthink things. Overthinkers are rarely successful. I should know, I used to be one. Keep it simple. Chill out. We do this every week. Now, you're bound to find a few you like. But let's move on with this one. If there was a subtype, I would call it a midline cross. I would even put an asterisk on that. Like I said, man, this is a weird one. We're going to see it in a minute. But as an exit indicator, I don't use volume indicators as exit indicators. I did have somebody before, a long time ago, made a pretty compelling case. He said, look, VP, it's when a volume indicator goes from yes to no, that pretty much indicates that volume is petering out. Wouldn't that be a really good time to exit a trade? And I'm like, look, the logic is not wrong. Just personally, I have never had good luck with using a volume indicator as an exit indicator. They just underperform. That's all I can tell you. But I will assume most of you already know this. Now, let's go ahead and give this thing a look. Now, at first glance, you might be saying, well, it's a midline cross. It looks a lot like a confirmation indicator. That's the problem with it. There are several problems with this, and I'll tell you why. So first off, it's going to be a bit harder to read because your mind is conditioned to think that when it crosses and closes and does that, okay, get all that out of your head. You guys know volume and volatility indicators are binary. It's either a yes or a no. Nothing else matters. And with this particular indicator, it's inverted. So everything below the line is a yes, you may take the trade. Everything above the line is a no. The volume's not there. Now again, don't fall into this trap. Don't think this is a stronger no signal than this. They are both no signals. It's binary. It's a 1 or a 0. Nothing in between. Look at every other part of your algorithm first. If you were getting nothing but green lights, then you look down to see if this is a yes or a no. And that's it. Now, if you're a fairly advanced, no-nonsense Forex trader, this should not be a big problem. But let me tell you what is going to be a big problem. It's this midline right here. This midline is not at a dead 50. Why? Because it is the midline of the top and bottom levels of this indicator. And those top and bottom levels change over time, which means the location of your midline is also going to need to change over time. What an enormous pain in the ass. Like, how do you even backtest if that's the case? You know, maybe you're a clever enough coder to where you can code that in, but who wants to sit there and move this thing up and down all the time? The one thing I will say is that from what I've seen, it doesn't really move up and down a whole lot. Maybe a little bit this way, a little bit that way. So if you just want to put it in a reasonable place and leave it there, it's not going to be the most accurate thing in the world, I get it, but it may be the best move in this situation. And again, I know this sounds unpleasant, but we have to ask ourselves, is it worth it? So let's get to the results and find out. Now, you know, before we do that, more than anything, you're about to see how we test this because volume indicators are so hard to test on the indicator profile series that we are doing it in the most crude, rudimentary way, which means that more than other indicators, our results are totally not going to equal yours. You absolutely must test this yourself. Now, luckily, down below in the description, I give you a link to my automation blog that has an embedded video on how to test these yourself on the MT4 Strategy Tester. And you also get something you might really want to look at this week. It's going to be Dan's blog for the Choppiness Index that gives you the tweak settings, the math behind it, and any other weird nuancy thing that I don't cover here on the video, you're going to find there. You're also going to get Dan's second email address. Now, the purpose of this second email address is just to send him indicators you want to submit for the possibility of being shown on the indicator profile series. If you want to ask him a question, he has his own email on the site itself. So please use that. And also understand that his site's getting more and more popular, so he's getting a lot more questions now. So please just ask questions if it's like a life or death thing that you can't get past. I mean, the only reason I say this is because he's probably a more patient man than I am. But you guys remember back in the day when I was very open to questions, and now I don't want to talk to anybody? Yeah, that's because you guys got way out of hand with those questions over time. So don't make the same mistake twice. But also know that you get the link to the indicator library every week as well, where you can download this indicator and any other indicator that we've spoken about on this program. Now, on to the results, but before we show you the results, we have to show you how we did this because with volume indicators, you need to test it against a fully developed system. As you guys know, I don't put my algorithm or anybody's algorithm up here, and even if I were just to throw together a random series of indicators, which I've done in the past, and this is how I know, people have just like ripped that entire algorithm off the screen and used it for themselves because they're lazy. Like, we don't want to do that. So what we're going to do instead is just make it super, super crude. So we just took a 20 period SMA and used it as a baseline. That there should be an E there. And that's all we did. This is our entire algorithm. You're looking at it. And so we still use our rules. So when price crosses and closes above, that's going to be a go signal. You're going to look down, and this circle should actually be over here more. Is it a yes or a no? It is a yes. And so we would take that trade. Simple as that. Now, I also know I don't use a baseline in metals. I don't even use a volume indicator for indices trading. But we're still going to show you those results anyway, because especially in these circumstances with all these moving parts, we just try to keep it as simple as possible. So now that all that is out of the way, let's check the results for the Choppiness Index, starting with the EURUSD. Now, it's already getting weird. Now, on the daily, not that weird. This right here is not the best results that we've had on here, but this is still high enough for me to have my interest peaked. And I would pursue this further if I was getting an ROI of that was in the high sevens like that. So not terrible. But the weirdness is going to be on the 4 hour. A very nice ROI, especially for Forex. But with a lot of trades. And I've mentioned this before. If you're a discretionary trader, this is not going to be possible for you at all, because the worst part about trading the 4-hour chart is you're not going to be around for all 6 of those candles throughout the 24-hour period of the day, unless you really hate your life. Like, you're going to be sleeping, you're going to be busy. It's not going to happen. So this is going to be totally inaccurate for somebody like that. But I do know a lot of you who trade the 4-hour chart who watch this channel are also coders. You automate things. So for you, this is probably not going to be a big deal. But just know that it exists. You're going to get a lot of trades, but the payoff might be really good. On to gold. Tell me when you see it. Nothing too weird about the results, really. I mean, good results. Gold's been giving us better results. So, nothing too surprising there, with a fairly low win-loss ratio, which we've seen is typical for gold, but not this low. Not 0 for 20. What are the chances of that happening? I mean, I freaked out the other week. Was it last week or the week before? Where that indicator went 10 out of 10? I was like, that's damn near impossible, but I guess it's possible. Highly, highly improbable. And again, this has no bearing on anything we do. I just thought it was a weird little anomaly that I would point out. Over to the S&P. And I said, I don't even use volume indicators when I trade indices, but if you do, or if you wanted to add one in, you could certainly do worse. These results are pretty normal and pretty good. This is close to 11%. That is still pretty close to the average for the overall yearly return of the S&P. And if you can get that in one indicator, that could certainly be something worth pursuing for you. A lot of you guys out there follow my rules to the letter. A lot of you don't. So here are those results, should you care to use them. Now, the crazy train, as it has been often at times in the last couple months or so, is going to be on Bitcoin. Do not adjust your screen. Are these the highest results we've ever come up with? I'm not even sure anymore. They're usually on Bitcoin, and in the past too, I think we've seen this little thing where the default is not that far away from the optimized tweak settings either. So if you just do nothing at all, results like that are possible. Remember how we're testing this, though. We're testing this against the most basic system of all time, and it's still putting out these numbers. So again, color me a bit skeptical, but the math is the math and the testing is the testing. Traders, it's right there. So this frustrating little diva might just be worth the time and frustration. There's only one way to find out. Take in all the data I've given you, decide if it's worth your time, and if you think it might be, give it a spin. Now, it might be a little while before we do a volume indicator again. I hope it's a little while, but that should not stop you from liking and subscribing and hitting that bell. As much as we complain, we are more than happy to put in the work and bring these things to you every Wednesday. The Trading Psychology Podcast, which is the most important thing we do now, every Monday. Blog on Thursday, and the 10-Minute Contrarian Investing Podcast every Saturday. If you think times are rough right now, let me tell you, there's a good chance they're going to get worse, and you're going to need to be prepared and skilled at the same time. That's why this channel exists, so go get it.